Hi, welcome back to the English Scholar. We already discussed the two types of clauses in the previous videos, which are necessary for constructing the simple, compound, and complex types of sentences. We also discussed the first two types of sentences according to structure. In this video, we'll finally discuss the last one. Please be informed that some elements of this video are repurposed, so some audio might not be the clearest, but rest assured it won't affect the information you'll learn. Thank you for understanding. Now, let's get started.
Complex sentences are used to show a specific relationship between two or three ideas contained in the clauses and clarify which among them is more important. Complex sentences contain two or more clauses, with one independent clause being the main clause or the pillar clause, and one or more dependent clauses being the subordinate. They are connected using subordinate conjunctions. If you are having a hard time following, you may watch our previous videos through the links we provided below, especially videos about subordinate conjunctions and clauses. Moving forward, let's have an example of a complex sentence. Nobody likes to go outside because it is raining. I will go for a run in the park after I finish my work. She didn't pass the exam, although she studied hard. These complex sentences have two clauses, one independent clause, or the main clause, and one dependent clause or subordinate clause. Again, independent clauses, from the word independent, can stand alone. They do not need other clauses to complete their intended meaning, while dependent clauses are the exact opposite in that they need independent clauses to make a full sentence. They are usually marked by independent marker words, especially subordinating conjunctions. These are the most commonly used subordinating conjunctions, and they are used to form complex sentences, marking the connection between clauses. Again, the use of each one depends on our intended meaning. In the links below, you'll find our video on subordinating conjunctions. There, we discussed each meaning with example sentences. Going back to the examples, you notice that in these sentences, we have put the independent clauses first before the dependent clauses. We can know when a clause is independent because we can remove the other clause and it still stands alone, giving a complete thought. And we can know when a clause is dependent because they are marked by dependent marker words that appear before the subject. Complex sentences in this form can be arranged in this way too. Because it is raining, nobody likes to go outside. In this format, we put the dependent clauses first before the independent ones, which is also fine. The only difference is that we have placed a comma. It is a must for this format. Please do not forget that. And notice how the sentences in different formats do not change their meaning. Sometimes, complex sentences can have two dependent clauses or subordinate clauses too. For example, while it is possible, nobody likes to go outside because it is raining. Even though I am not well, I will go for a run in the park after I finish my work. Whereas others did, Blake did not pass the exam although she studied hard. Let's take the first example and break it down. Our independent clause or main clause is nobody likes to go outside. It stands alone on its own and can function as a sentence. Our dependent or subordinate clauses are while it is possible and because it is raining. All three clauses have subjects and verbs. The only difference is that the independent clause stands alone, while the others do not, and are marked by dependent marker words, specifically subordinating conjunctions. The same with the other two complex sentences. Complex sentences in this form can be interchanged too, like in our previous examples, but we have to be careful in rearranging the clauses to avoid confusion. Let's take our first example. While it is possible, nobody likes to go outside because it is raining. We can put our independent clause first. Nobody likes to go outside, while it is possible because it is raining. Aside from the arrangement, What do you notice has changed? The comma. In this format, we used a comma. In the second one, we did not. That is one thing to note. If the dependent clause is followed by the independent one, we always put a comma between them. But if the independent clause comes first, no need for the comma. Notice that the sentence's meaning hasn't changed. Now, what if we put the other dependent clause here? Nobody likes to go outside because it is raining while it is possible. Sounds quite confusing, right? Although it is grammatically correct, we still need to consider how our audience would understand, and we should give them time to breathe while reading. So in this sentence, it is better to use the first two formats, much more the first format. Let's take our second example sentence. Even though I am not well, I will go for a run in the park after I finish my work. I will go for a run in the park even though I am not well after I finish my work. We used the same arrangement with the first sentence. However, this time, it sounds a little bit confusing. Remember, we have to consider how our readers would understand our text, and at the same time, we need to give room for breathing. So this format does not seem to fit the criteria. So let's try rearranging the clauses. I will go for a run in the park after I finish my work, even though I am not well. Now, how does that sound? Sounds better and more understandable. Let's have the third example. Whereas others did, Blake did not pass the exam, although she studied hard. Again, let's put the independent clause first, or the main clause. Blake did not pass the exam, whereas others did, although she studied hard. The same with the second example. We followed the same arrangement as the first example, but it still sounds confusing and difficult to read. So we can try interchanging the two dependent clauses or subordinate clauses. Blake did not pass the exam, although she studied hard, whereas others did. This arrangement still sounds confusing. If we take into account the things that we need to consider, we would rather avoid this kind of arrangement, although it is grammatically correct. So the first arrangement would be better. With all these things in mind, let's take note of the following. If the complex sentence consists of one independent clause and one dependent only, the two arrangements are completely fine. If the dependent clause comes first, we need to put a comma before putting the independent clause. If the complex sentence consists of one independent clause and two dependent clauses, we must take into consideration how we will arrange the clauses. It does not matter which clause comes first, as long as it is more understandable. And if the dependent clause comes first, we need to put a comma before the independent clause.